everyone. Thank you for coming by and stopping at Guiding Counsel, where we are here to hopefully help one human at a time and develop other sensory, psychic abilities. Uh, Hopefully, you learned something that you didn't know before, which I'm excited about because I'm going to learn something that I've had bits of information. I can say that I know a little bit of everything to hold a intelligent conversation, but not enough to like really dive into it. And so I'm going to introduce Jason because Jason is a Kundalini Yogi, which I am very interested about learning more about Kundalini. And it kind of led into astrology, which I've said many times on my podcast before. I have zero clue about astrology. So, Jason, I am so happy that you are here joining me today on this beautiful, hot Southern California day. And please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me be part of this conversation. Yeah, so my name is Jason. I'm a Kundalini Yogi and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. And I have a real passion for helping people navigate through the shifts that we're experiencing right now. We have entered the Aquarian age. That's a whole new cycle of reality. And everything that's old is being torn down. And sometimes it feels like the world is falling apart, but really it's falling into place. And so I do Kundalini Yoga to help me and help other people navigate these times, strengthen their nervous system, fix their brain, and then astrology that gives you the roadmap that allows you to understand what's really happening. So that's me. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is those two things, and anything else that comes up really.
Also because I never really thought of ever combining those two different types of mediums or modalities or whatever you want to call it. And it makes sense because everything is connected in one shape or form. So I want to ask how you got into Kundalini, because it's not like you wake up one day and like, oh, I'm going to do, yoga and spring out my serpent within me.
Yeah, no, that was the last thing on my mind. It all started at a bar in West Hollywood, actually, as so many things do.
Of course, everything.
I was living in Kansas at the time, but visiting Los Angeles. I had a very different life in Kansas. Before I was a Kundalini Yogi and I was an astrologer, believe it or not, I was in politics. And I had ran a political party in Wichita, Kansas. I had run for city council. And then this thing called Saturn Return happened, which I didn't know what was going on, but it's this thing that happens around the time that you're 29 or 30 and your life seems to fall apart. Saturn is structure in astrology. So every 29, 30 years, when Saturn returns to the position that it was when you were born in the current sky, you have what's called a Saturn return. And your higher self checks in with your current self living here on the planet and says, hey, what do you think about the structure that you're living? What do you think about the reality that you've constructed for yourself? And since most of us are a hot mess in our 20s, our higher self is not all that thrilled with what we're doing. And so life has to seemingly fall apart. And that's kind of what happened with me. I was in the middle of running for city council. I had a plan to become the mayor of Wichita, and that just kind of all fell apart. One day I woke up and I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I abruptly dropped out of politics and eventually was looking to get out of Wichita. So that took me to Los Angeles. I was looking for a new city to live in. Visited a friend in LA, and one night we were in West Hollywood, and we go to, I think it's called Trunks. It's one of those stupid bars on Santa Monica. And I walk into this bar and I see this guy from across the room, and he sees me, and we're just like electromagnetically attracted to each other. And I walk up to him, and he has this tattoo on his arm that says Sat Nam. And I didn't know what Sat Nam meant. And so I asked him, I said, what's your tattoo all about? And he goes, oh, it means truth is my identity. Well, the only truth I wanted at that point was him. I was very attracted to him. He's very attracted to me. So that was all the Satnam I cared about. But and this is why soul contracts are so important. I'm going to get to that. So, we talk, we're into each other, we exchange numbers, and I was very into him, but he wasn't interested in dating somebody who lived in Kansas. So I was like, oh no, I'm gonna move here. So I had made a decision on that trip to move to LA. Had nothing to do with him. I just felt like this was where I needed to be. So I made a plan. I decided, okay, 1 year from then I'm going to be living in Los Angeles. And I just set a projection. And I told him that. And he said, okay, well, call me when you get here. So we friend each other on Facebook. I spend a year watching him check into this place called Golden Bridge Yoga. And I have this plan. I'm going to, go back to Kansas. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm saving up money. I'm going to move to LA with or without a job. And once I get there, I'm going to go to this Golden Bridge Yoga and I'm going to see him and we're going to run into each other and we're going to be a thing.
Could be like,
That was my plan. Yeah. Like heart. Yeah. Long story short, I do get to LA. I do come here with a job and I do go to Golden Bridge Yoga. And when I walk in there, I'm expecting yoga like Kansas yoga. Like, first of all, it's $5 donation based in Wichita, Kansas in 2013. And it's normal yoga. It's like stretching and warrior pose and savasana. Well, I walk in there and everybody's wearing all white. And there's this woman behind the desk wearing a turban. And she's like, Waheguru, welcome to Golden Bridge. And yoga's $20 a class, which is not, that's fine for me now. But like at the time, I'm like, sticker shock because I'm from Kansas and I still got this like prosperity blocks in my mind. So I'm like, $20 a class. But they had this special where if you did a 10 class pass, you $100 for 10 classes. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. He is bound to be here one of those 10 times. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but super into this guy. So hopefully he's here. Well, he's not there. And we start this class, and it is the weirdest class I've ever taken. Our arms are in the air, angled at some like weird degree. We're doing this weird breath work. We're chanting these mantras in some foreign language I've never known. And I'm like, what the heck did I just get myself into? And I was pissed. The guy wasn't there, and the yoga was weird, and it was expensive, and I was in this weird city, and I didn't know anybody, and so I had like all this stuff came up during class, and I was like mad. So then I walk out of there even more mad because I'm like, oh fuck, I got to go back 9 more times now because I paid for the class pass. So what ended up happening was I start my job and building my life in LA, and then about a month later, I had some time when I was on vacation from work, and I was like, okay, I guess I got to go back to this yoga studio, and maybe this guy will be there. The guy who ghosted me, by the way, once I moved here, I was like always texting him, and he like never had time for me, which is what you learn when you move to LA, that nobody has time for you. I didn't know this coming from Kansas, so I go back to Golden Bridge, and I had a very different experience the second time. I was dealing with a lot of stress at my new job, and there was a lot of like conflicting personalities that I was having to manage. And somehow, when we were doing this class, while we were moving, while we were chanting, while like energy was literally moving up and down my spine, I was feeling better and I was seeing the solutions for how to navigate the problems that I had. And I walked out of that class feeling like a totally different person. And I no longer cared about the guy. I cared about the yoga. And then I was like, Sat Nam, truth is my identity. Don't need the guy. I just need this yoga. And that was my yoga after that. So that was my whole first year in LA, was going to Golden Bridge Yoga, practicing Kundalini Yoga, and learning about what Kundalini Yoga is. And Kundalini Yoga is moving energy through your body. We work with the chakra system. Energy moves from the base of your spine all the way up to the crown. You're doing, physical yoga, but you're doing a lot of breath work. You're chanting a lot of mantras, and then you're ultimately meditating. You're stilling the mind. And the best part of this story is, and this is where the soul contracts come into it. This guy's I never see this guy at Golden Bridge. About a year later, I run into him at Runyon Canyon, and I'm like, oh my God, Kundalini Yoga changed my life. I'm so glad I met you, and you told me about Kundalini Yoga. And he was like, oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. And in that moment, that's when I understood what a soul contract was. See, before we got here, we had a deal with each other that one day we were going to meet at a bar in West Hollywood, and I was going to think I was attracted to him. And really what I was attracted to was the sound code that he had tattooed on his arm, which is Sat Nam, truth is my identity. Because my destiny in part in this life was to go into this practice, to learn this practice, and then to teach this practice. And I just needed to get attracted to this one guy to get me on that path. It had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with what I opened myself up to because of that one small thing. So never doubt what could happen when you just walk into a space and you have an encounter with somebody.
especially a bar.
Especially a bar called Trunks in West Hollywood. Yes, although I don't go to bars anymore. I live a totally different life now.
I totally thought you were going to open up with a joke, like one day I went to a bar or one night at the bar. But no, this was an actual story that transformed your life, basically.
Yeah, and that has now become my life. And so much of my life changed because of Kundalini Yoga. I was the person who was going to bars in my 20s. wasn't doing anything crazy. I was just, I was just drinking and having a good time, going to concerts. Nothing necessarily wrong with any of that. But what I was really looking for was I was looking for something beyond me. I was looking to find answers, and I was looking for something higher. And a lot of times we don't know where to find that, especially people who've been wounded by religion. You know, a lot of people, the religious structure didn't fit, especially for gay people. A lot of times, there's so much wounding around religion. And what I found in Kundalini Yoga was there's a way to tap into your spiritual self. There's a way to be in tune with the higher self. And there's a way to really grow yourself. And it's a lifelong practice because growth is a lifelong thing. We're all growing at different times. I was nearing the end of my Saturn return, so I was putting a new structure and a new foundation in place in my life. And for me, my Saturn is in the 12th house. The 12th house is spirituality. We have this teaching in evolutionary astrology that Saturn is where you said no to God in your last life. So in this life, you get extra lessons and assignments. Well, for me, I have extra lessons and assignments in the form of having a spiritual practice and spiritual discipline. And at my Saturn return, I was given the gift of being able to walk into that by finding this practice.
There's so many questions I have, but I'm going to go back real quick I'm going to bounce a little bit. So I want to go back to where you said that we have a cycle when Saturn returns every 29 to 30 years.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I think it would behoove somebody or anybody, especially like me, to see where that occurred in my life every 30 years. Now, is that like every 30 years after like you're born?
Yeah.
Or it just like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Every 30 years after you're born. So what it is Saturn takes about 29 years to orbit the sun. So when you're born, it's at a certain place in the zodiac. Like let's say that you're born and Saturn is at 0 degrees Aries. Well, about 29 to 30 years later. And the reason it's not precise is these planets retrograde, so they move back. So it is highly individual. If I see your chart, I can tell you exactly when. But about 29 to 30 years later, it's going to be back at 0 degrees Aries again. And that's when you have what we call a Saturn return. But you don't just have one. You can have, most people get 2, a lot of people get 3, and then maybe in the future we'll get 4 if we start living into, the 120s.
Mm-hmm. So in theory, I can go back and
yes.
if that
what was
29
going on
to 30 year,
yeah,
Holy.
Exactly.
Now I just have to remember what happened because I've blocked all that shit out,
I've tried, but it's part of the story.
Oh my gosh, that's okay.
If you go back, you will
29.
probably see, and anybody listening to this, do that. Look back at your life when you were around 29, 30. What was going on? Was your job, did you lose your job? Did you start a new job? Did you get married? Did a relationship end? Did you move somewhere? Those are very common things that happen at Saturn return.
Now, do they happen just for like a year or 2 or
Great
like
question.
a few months?
It's about a 2-year cycle because what happens is because these planets retrograde, usually Saturn, you will start to feel it when it's within what we call about a 5-degree orb. So let's go back to that. Let's say your Saturn is at 0 degrees Aries. 5 degrees away from that is 25 degrees Pisces. So when Saturn is at 25 degrees Pisces, you're going to start feeling it. Then it's going to get to 0 degrees Aries and it's really going to feel intense. Then it keeps moving, but eventually it retrogrades and then it goes back to 0 degrees Aries. Usually just does this once and then it goes forward. So all of that takes about 1.5 to 2 years. And then you're integrating it after that. For me, again, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew my life was falling apart and I couldn't explain it. But when I understood astrology, I got it. For me, it was about a 2-year thing. Like I can look and I can see, okay, I was laying the foundation to become a city council member and become mayor. Then that fell apart. Then I go to LA, I get into this weird yoga practice, and then that changes my life. That all took about 2 years.
Okay. I'll have to look at mine because I feel like mine has been for like 5 years already. I'm over it.
Well, there's other things that are going on. So this is what I call time-coded evolution. So what I look at as an astrologer, I look at the birth chart as being the plot that you put in place. Before you got here, you decided the kind of life that you wanted to live. You decided the experiences you wanted to have, the growth that you wanted to have. And if you understand the birth chart, then you understand what the plot was that you put in place. So that's your birth chart. That's where you were at when you were born. But the planets move, and as they move, they're moving you. They're moving energy in you. And so there are certain cycles. Saturn return is one of them, but there's many cycles within cycles that are constantly growing and evolving you. The next big one happens when you're about 42, which I'm going through right now, and that's called Uranus opposition. that's when the natal, you were born, Uranus was in 1 point. That's your natal Uranus. When it's exactly opposite, you have what's called a Uranus opposition. We colloquially know this as a midlife crisis. This is the classic, guy leaves his wife, marries a secretary, buys a red Ferrari. You don't have to have a crisis anymore in the Aquarian age. You can have a complete and total transformation. And that's what I'm all about. And that's what I encourage people that I work with to do. During Uranus opposition, you want to really be moving the energy up the spine. That's why Kundalini Yoga is so important when you get to that mid-age, midlife cycle, because you want to be growing and evolving. So many people get stuck. They're stagnant. They just kind of default. Life kind of happens to you. You have kids, you have a job, and you just stop growing. But Uranus opposition comes in and it tries to wake you up. Sometimes that wakes you up through a health crisis. Sometimes that wakes you up through the loss of a relationship or a job, or just some kind of an event, or maybe some kind of a depression or mental episode. Something is going to try to wake you up. And then if you take the opportunity and you allow yourself to be woken up, your life is going to really transform. And you're going to realize that actually life gets a lot better after 42. There's this myth that life is the best when you're younger. If you're growing, it actually gets better every year. And if you understand astrology, you understand it's actually part of the plan.
I am with you. I've passed the 40 stage already, but I feel like the growth, the personal growth is way more what's a good word? Like, I want to say exuberant, but I don't know if I'm using that word correctly, but it's like so much more. Yeah, I feel like even though there's things going on, I'm just like, ugh, but still I feel the growth aspect of it is just, I can't put into words the cool, like how cool it is to be aware of the transformation. And it's slow, for us in our linear time and our need to move things quickly for instant gratification versus delayed gratification. It's slow, but it's when you realize it, when you recognize it, you're like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And especially if you're on a path like people like you and I are on, and people who are watching and listening to this are on, then you're aware. And then you see, maybe it's not fun while you're going through it all the time, but you can see that it's part of something bigger. And usually then you can snap yourself out of whatever, whatever depressive thoughts or hurt feelings or whatever, because then you see, okay, this is all part of the plan, part of my plan that I put in place for myself, that you put in place for yourself.
I know that's the tough part where when we recognize it, we finally start to accept, like, what was I thinking, man? Shit. I don't want, why did I do that? But I want to go back to Kundalini, because that really, because the Kundalini is the foundation. And Kundalini, because you said it too, as you were talking about astrology, that astrology kind of, and correct me if I misinterpreted this, but that when you're looking at the astrology and the birth chart, it's basically the map of how the energy moves for you based on your, you were born and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But that is based on a background map. So this is basically the back in the day MapQuest or, Thomas Guide we used to have.
Yeah, I have a Thomas Guide.
Yeah, the Thomas Guide, right?
Yeah.
But when you do the Kundalini, that is the physical aspect of moving the energy. So that's why it correlates. You have the physical to the non-physical, and they have to harmonize. They have to, kind of work together. So, and then you equated Kansas yoga, or not equate, but you compared Kansas yoga to weird yoga, and I'm all about that, because the only yoga that I've done so far, and aside from the, what's that, Berkman yoga, where you do it like 1,000 degrees and stuff like that.
Bikram yoga. Yeah. Yes, I've done that. Yes.
That one. Yeah, not my jam, but
I feel great when I do it, but getting myself there is a little bit of a struggle sometimes.
Yes, I gave up after 2 sessions. But when you're doing the Kansas yoga, that's basically what we're used to seeing here. You do the poses, the tree pose, and then like you were saying, the warrior pose and things of that nature. And in Kundalini, I never understood, because I haven't done it. That's why. I never understood if the yoga that you do in Kundalini, are you still using those traditional yoga moves, or are they different to Kundalini, to move energy?
That's a great question. You're using some of them, but mostly you're using very distinctive postures. And it's not about the posture and perfecting the posture so much as it is moving through what we call the Kriya. There's this, every Kriya has its own set of postures and its own set of actions, and you're moving through that. So yeah, do we ever stand in tree pose in Kundalini Yoga? Yes. It's usually part of a set where we're doing a lot of other things. Warrior pose we have a variation on. So yeah, when you walk into like a vinyasa sort of class, you're going to have a very different experience than walking into a Kundalini Yoga class. And I will say this, part of what I experienced in Kansas was there was this sort of tiptoeing around of the fact that yoga is a spiritual practice. But in a place like Kansas in 2013, you couldn't really be out of the closet about that. So you kind of just went and you just sort of moved. But we're all kind of vaguely aware that we're connecting to our higher selves. Kundalini Yoga, I think, is the most out of the closet practice when it comes to this is a spiritual discipline as much as it is a physical set of actions that you're going to be doing. Because there is a huge spiritual component that's imbued with the yogic practice itself, which is what yoga is all about. Yogananda, I've got Autobiography of a Yogi back here. He brought Kriya Yoga over to the West. Kundalini Yoga is a version of Kriya Yoga. It's a little bit different. Kriya is in the type that Yogananda teaches. They're all real. They're all relevant, though, and they all move energy. It's just a matter of what system resonates with you.
And that Paramahansa Yogananda, when he brought that over to the West too, he also brought the story, I think it was him, of that one yogi that could levitate because of the practice of
Yes.
the Kriya Yoga.
Yes, and he talks about that in Autobiography of a Yogi, and it's interesting you brought that up. The person who brought Kundalini Yoga over to the West, Yogi Bhajan, when he was first teaching it here in the late, I think it was 1969, 1970, the story that I've heard from my teacher is that he was actually teaching people how to levitate, but then somebody levitated and they fell and they broke a bone, and then they sued the YMCA, so he wasn't able to teach that anymore. Now, I wasn't there. I can't tell you how true that was, but it's a fun yoga story that kind of harkens back to what Yogananda talked about in Autobiography of a Yogi.
Oh my gosh. And now, of course, people are trying to levitate and are doing through telekinesis levitating things already. So it's like full circle as usual with everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what I'm envisioning, again, because I haven't done this type of yoga, is a kind of a form of some traditional poses of yoga with maybe some Tai Chi where you're moving the energy within
somewhat
that.
like that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you're also doing, well, maybe not at the same time because that's a lot to do at once, but there's going to be moments of the chanting of the mantras and then the breath work.
Yes, and sometimes it is happening at the same time. Sometimes you're moving your body and you're chanting a mantra, or you're moving your body and you're breathing in a certain way. Typically, the way a class is structured is if you're doing a 90-minute Kundalini Yoga class, you're going to open up with some warm-ups. So like cat-cow is a pretty popular posture that people understand, where you're kind of flexing the spine when you're on all fours. You might do like a spinal flex like this. You might twist your shoulders. You're going to do those for a few minutes each. That gets the energy moving. That kind of gets you into a state where you're a little more open. Then you're probably going to do what's called a Kriya, which is a set of action designed to have a specific outcome. We have a Kriya for elevation that really elevates your mood. We have Kriyas to conquer disease. We have Kriyas to overcome depression. And we have Kriyas to attract abundance. What you're doing during those Kriyas is you're following a set of actions, moving your body in posture. So they're sort of like yogic exercises. A lot of times there's breath work that's a part of that. Then we typically end the class with a meditation where we're either silently meditating with our hands positioned in a certain way, or maybe we're chanting a mantra as part of that meditation.
As you've been teaching and or attending these classes, now I've heard of many people that have had the Kundalini awakening all at once, and that just means your chakras all open at once, and then you see the 1,000-petal lotus, things of that nature. Have you witnessed that?
I have, but in Kundalini Yoga, it's a little different from when you hear people talk about Kundalini awakenings. Kundalini Yoga, a Kundalini awakening sometimes can be very overwhelming because the person doesn't understand what's happening, and it's a lot of energy that gets released at once, and then usually the person doesn't know where and how to direct the energy. Kundalini Yoga, the way that it's designed, it's helping you move the energy without it being overwhelming. It's moving it at a pace that you, for where you are now, can handle it. And will you sometimes have massive awakenings that are sort of like a Kundalini awakening, you can, but it's more about the daily practice. It's more about developing it as part of a discipline that you integrate into your life. And then little by little, bit by bit, you're moving energy, and then you're seeing your outward reality shift as your inward reality is shifting. A lot of times when people have the Kundalini awakenings, they don't know what to do with it. And then it's like, they don't see the world quite the same after that, of course, but how are you integrating that? The great thing about the Kundalini Yoga meditation system that I've studied with, there's a whole process that you're kind of integrating that in on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the people that I've heard that have had the Kundalini awakening aspect of it go into what they may perceive or others around them perceive a state of psychosis,
It is
but it's
psychosis.
not.
Yes. Well, or
Yeah,
it is perceived as psychosis. It is not psychosis. It is perceived as that, though. It is what we label as psychosis. What it actually is their reality has been either shattered and or expanded, and they now see a whole different reality, but they don't have a container to help them navigate that. And a lot of times they don't have a teacher or a guide to help them navigate that, which is why it's important if you're going to be doing these kind of practices, you want to make sure you're studying with somebody or you have a community around you that can help you navigate that, because otherwise, yeah, that's what's going to happen. People are going to think you're having a psychotic breakdown, and you're not. You're actually having a psychic breakthrough.
yeah. And I remember a friend of mine, well, no, more of an acquaintance actually, and she was telling me her experiences, but it was through just a lot of, I think it was maybe ayahuasca.
Yeah, I could
I
see
think
that.
because she used to make her own ayahuasca,
Okay.
and she would take it like almost on the daily, and she had an experience, and she had never been the same for a long time. Luckily, she was already starting on the path of spirituality, and we happened to meet by chance, and she was we were talking all the time, and we were working with each other and stuff.
Yeah.
And I told her, I'm like, bro, you had like a spiritual awakening and you were not ready for it. So all these
Yeah.
demons that you see around you, all these entities that you see
Yeah.
around you, that's because you blew yourself wide open without any type of like, you know, be having the ability to rein it in, to ground it. No matter how much grounding you do, it won't be enough because it was just so intense.
Yeah.
And it took her like 3 years to finally settle down. But there were some points she's like, I think I need to go to a treatment center. I'm like, for what? For like having too much ayahuasca and seeing entities now? Like,
They're not going to know what to do. They're going to tell you you're crazy, and you're not crazy. What's happened
exactly.
is it's kind of like a time release. Sometimes you time release too much and you don't have the energy or the capacity to integrate all of it, which is why I always tell people you should be very careful if you're going to do plant medicine. I myself don't do it. No judgments. I think it can be helpful, but you need to be very careful about how to do it, and you don't want to supplement it as a drug. I know a lot of people who were addicted to substances, and then they started doing plant medicine, and that almost became like another substance. You can only handle so much of that. It's really something you want to do sparingly, and really at pivotal points to open you up in certain ways, not something to do on a regular basis.
And with support. I always tell people
Very
if you're
much
going to
so.
do this,
Yes.
have the support at
Yeah.
least the first couple of times. Have the
Yeah.
support, learn the way,
Yeah.
understand the medicine because you're right. I mean, I love plant medicine, but I've always done it in a very safe environment with
Yeah.
a community. There's always integration
Yeah.
afterwards. There's all sorts of there's protocols to follow to do in
Yeah.
the beginning, during, and after.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
always respectful of all of that stuff. So when she was doing, the ayahuasca yeah, I think it's ayahuasca, herself all this time, I was like, oh, why would you do that? Yeah, that's a lot of
Yeah.
purging. Who wants to purge all the time?
Well, you have to find a balance, and everybody's on their own path, but sometimes it can be too much, and that's why it's important to. I think it's more important to have a daily practice, whether it's Kundalini Yoga or something else, something that you're going to every day, where you're connecting with your higher self and where you're moving energy through your system in some way. That's going to do more for you than anything else.
Okay, so let's talk about the daily practice
Yeah,
in this Kundalini yoga because we also talked about breath work. Now,
yeah,
I have done breath work and I enjoy the breath work. The only thing with the breath work is I cannot hold my breath for like, I think at most is 45 seconds. Like, I can't
okay,
do the
yeah,
1 to 2 or 3
yeah.
minutes. How do you guys incorporate the breath work in the Kundalini yoga?
It's a part of the class. A lot of the Kriyas that we do have it in there. The one of the main breaths that we do that you'll hear a lot about is that breath of fire. It's a rapid inhale, exhale through the nose. So it's where you're going like equal inhale through the nose. That is a detoxifying breath. And a lot of times what we're doing with these classes or with these Kriyas in these classes is we're taking toxins out of our system. And we have the ability to do that with our breath. There's other breaths too. You know, there's the sort of like deep breath where you're holding it and then you're inhaling for 20 seconds, you're holding it for 20 seconds, you're exhaling for 20 seconds. That's the 1 minute breath. That also has a cleansing effect to it. But really, breath is one of the most powerful tools that we have because we can take ourselves back to our higher selves with our breath. We forget to breathe so many times though. Or we forget to breathe consciously. And in Kundalini Yoga, one of the big things you're doing is you're learning to control your breath. And a lot of the sets that we do in classes, there's a specific way that you're being taught to control that breath.
And the other thing too, because I realized very late in life that I wasn't breathing correctly. When you inhaled, your stomach pushes out. I had no clue. I had been doing it backwards. I'm like, how did that happen?
Well, you know, going back to the story I told, the very first Kundalini Yoga class I ever walked into when I was epically pissed off. Part of why I was pissed off, I think, was she said that you breathe by inhaling into your belly, and then she made the comment that some people have gone their whole life not breathing correctly, and I'm thinking, oh, that's me. I've literally been breathing incorrectly my whole life, so no wonder I was pissed off. But no, it's true. Once you learn how to breathe correctly, that in and of itself will change your whole life.
Yeah, that was a game changer because I'm pretty athletic and I can run long distance, steadily, the endurance. So I was breathing like so shallow and honestly, it was not the way you're supposed to. And I'm like, it works for me. Like, why change it? Like, I want to keep running long distance. Like,
But you can have more vitality and you can have more energy when you know how to breathe correctly. And that when you learn the yogic sciences, you learn how to use all these tools to your benefit in whatever it is you're doing.
So, how many times a week should a person be doing Kundalini Yoga?
I think every person should have a daily practice that they go to every single day. Whether that's Kundalini Yoga or not, that's up to you. You want to have something that's connecting you to your higher self and taking you out of the chaos and taking you inside. So I do Kundalini Yoga literally every day. I have my own practice at home. I have my own meditations that I do. And then I go to a class as often as I can. I would say if you're a student of Kundalini Yoga, try to go to a class at least once a week. Do your own practice every day, even if it's 3 minutes, even if you've got 3 minutes to do breath of fire, do that. But do something every day and then try to go to class once a week. Me, I like to go, 3, 4, there was last year when I was going through the thick Uranus opposition, I was literally going every day, sometimes twice a day. And a lot changes. And you go through phases. Sometimes you need to be in class more. You need to practice on a daily more. And then sometimes you need to be living your life. So that's why it's good to have your own thing that you do every day, rain or shine. And then, just go to class when you need to go.
Okay. Now let's go into how you got into the astrology. How did this all happen?
So Kundalini Yoga moves energy through your body. Astrology is kind of like a roadmap that allows you to understand what reality is. You want to be able to move to marry the two together. I had a cool experience where the yoga studio that I was studying at, my teacher would always have an astrologer on stage with her whenever we would have these moons and conjunctions and planets going into signs. And I didn't understand any of it. But I understood that this practice that we have, Kundalini Yoga, actually relates a lot to astrology because when you start to understand yogic anatomy, you understand that so much of what we have on our human body is related to these planets. And I'll give you an example. This is a hand. This is my pinky. This is your Mercury finger. This is your sun finger. I'm not doing a vulgar gesture. I'm showing you my Saturn finger. And then this is your Jupiter finger. This right here is your thumb. The thumb represents ego in yogic sciences, and in astrology, ego is Mars. And then we have this thing called the Venus mound, which is right here. So right here, on your hand, you have all of the inner planets. You have the energy of all of the inner planets. A lot of what we do in Kundalini Yoga, we work with the planets. There's prosperity meditations that we do where we do things with the Jupiter finger. There's communication meditations to, have better communication with yourself, have better communication with others, that uses the Mercury finger. We do things with the Sun finger to give us energy. We do things with this Saturn finger to give us patience. When I started to understand all of that, I understood that there was a whole other layer to this that I needed to understand. So my teacher would have this astrologer on stage. She would talk about what was going on in the sky. I understood very little of what she was saying, but I understood that it was very important. And then 2020 happened, and reality stopped making sense to me. The reality I had known was clearly changing. And so I thought, okay, now might be a good time to start to learn astrology, because I don't really like the narrative that I'm seeing everybody else talk about. And I feel like there's something bigger going on here, and I want to understand what that is. So I started to study astrology deeply. I started to listen to podcasts, and I started to read books, and I started to just absorb as much of it as I could. And what I came to understand is that if you understand astrology, if you understand the stars, you understand how they're moving and what that movement means, and then you understand your own astrology, your own natal chart, then you understand you're not a victim of time. Time is going to move. The world is going to change. There's going to be events that happen, maybe some you like, maybe some you don't like, but you know what's coming, and then you know how to handle yourself while it's happening. And you realize you're not a victim of time. You're just part of the cycle. And it's also a cycle you signed up to be a part of, and then you know how to move through it. And with Kundalini Yoga, you have tools that can move the energy in very specific ways. You don't just know the astrology, you have some way to navigate that.
So when you have the movements with your fingers to associate
Yeah.
the Saturn and the emotions or symptoms associated, are those what you would call mudras when you have the
Those are
hands?
mudras. Yeah. Anytime,
Okay.
anytime your hand is in it. So like this is Gyan mudra. This is when you're taking the thumb and you're taking the pointer finger, or as we say, the Jupiter finger, you put it together. This is the one most people know, Gyan mudra. And so that is a mudra. Any kind of position with your hands, whether you're intentionally directing planetary energy or not, that is a mudra.
Okay. So when you were talking about the roadmap and being able to see what's coming up next through the astrology, I'm pretty sure it's not like it's going to tell you what the circumstance is,
No.
but it's going to give you like some sort of a window between here
Yeah.
and here. You're going to have some sort of
Yeah.
hardship,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
how do you translate it? Like, how do you
It
use it for
shows
yourself?
it shows you the themes that are going to be at play. Like you understand that a planet is
Um,
transiting a certain sign, then you understand, okay, these are the themes that I'm going to be dealing with. This is the archetype that I'm going to be dealing with it with. When you understand where it's hitting at in your chart by house, the houses are the where. So if it's hitting your eighth house, that's going to have something to do with sex or intimacy. If it's hitting the seventh house, it's going to have something to do with relationships. Your 10th house, probably your career. Your third house, communication. That's going to tell you the where in your life that's going to show up. And then that gives you an ability to understand what might happen. Who are you going to meet? How is it going to go down? What's going to happen tomorrow? That's all up to you. But when you understand the broader cycles of the energy that's at play, then you know how to move through that a little bit more. And I'll give you
is
an
the
example for. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No,
I was
go
just going to
go
give
for
you
it.
an example for how, like, I knew about Uranus opposition years ago when I was in my 30s. I had heard Barbara Hand Clow, who's a great cosmologist and astrologer, talking about Uranus opposition. That's when I got introduced to the idea of the whole midlife crisis and how you can use that to really transform yourself. So the first thing I did was figure out, okay, when is mine happening? And then where is it happening? Well, mine was going to be happening basically 2025, 2026. And it was going to be happening and is happening in my eighth house with Uranus starting out. Uranus was at the tail end of Taurus going into Gemini. Well, my natal Uranus is 0 degrees Sagittarius. Uranus just went back into Gemini. So I knew it was going to have eighth house intimacy themes. And because Gemini is involved, it's going to be about sharing ideas and also just like being more social and like having to have an interchange and an interplay with people. So that's been what my life has been all about. It's been a deep exploration of myself in terms of how I relate intimately, and then how I share resources and exchange ideas with each other or with other people. And I knew that ahead of time. So I was able to prepare myself to put myself in a frequency where like I was able to maximize that growth. Hasn't always been easy.
Well, if you have that knowledge beforehand, is there a way that you can avoid it, or is it just going to happen regardless? You just
Here's the
brace
thing.
yourself.
You can work through it with grace rather than allowing it to be a catastrophe. Because I know for me, I'm somebody who avoided intimacy and I avoided having intimate relationships, avoided dating for so much of my life. I think if I didn't know this was coming, I would have had something probably health wise happen to me that would have like woken me up at a deeper level. But because I knew this was coming, I opened myself up more. And then I was able to navigate it with a lot more grace and a lot more ease. And I was also able to realize that everything happening wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me because I understood the bigger thing that was at play.
So I guess this is part of where they say, I mean, you have free will, but then
You
the
do.
question always comes up like, how much free will do you have? Are things
Right.
already predestined?
Yeah.
So the themes, according to your chart, are things that from the sounds of it, is predestined, but how you go about it, the people that you choose, the circumstances, whatever, is your free will. But no matter what, the theme is there and it's going to happen regardless. It's just how you get to navigate, how you get to choose how you navigate through it.
Yeah. And I would say predestined becomes controversial because we want to feel like and believe that we have complete and total control. And we actually do. You just have to shift your perspective a little bit. I more look at it as pre-coded. See, you're in complete control of your life because you pre-coded your life before you got here. You decided you were going to live your life. You're going to have certain experiences in your life. Once you got down here, though, you started making choices and you have free will. And then maybe some of the plans didn't go as planned or some of the plans changed. That's all in the birth chart. And that's all in the transits that are happening. That all of that is very much at play, but you're always in complete control of what happens to you. Even when these energies are happening, you have a choice. Are you going to be meeting it at the low vibration or at the high vibration? And there's a low vibration and a high vibration to every single sign, every single planet, every single possibility of astrological combinations.
That you just brought up what I was going to go into. So, like, there's so many different layers. This is why I kind of shut down astrology, because there's so many layers on top of it that it just seems so much. Because I just found out through TikTok, thank you TikTok, that I was in a 7-year like karmic something or another. Uranus finally left Scorpio in April or something.
It left Taurus in April. Yeah.
Okay, so I had no idea that I was in a 7-year dump, and then I realized, oh well, that makes sense. You know, crap. And I'm actually glad I didn't know, because I think if I would have known that I was going to be in a 7-year funk, then I would have been in the back of my mind being like, oh, 2 more years before this dump, goes away.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. It's a reframing. And some of these astrologers, they put content like that out there, and they don't realize that this is all happening so that we can evolve. So Uranus and Taurus, depending on what you have going on in your house with Taurus, and if you're a Scorpio, then there's going to be some oppositional energy that's going to be coming in there. That's a time when you can massively grow and transform. And if you lean into that as a narrative versus, oh my God, my life is going to fall apart and it's going to be awful, you're going to have a better 7 years. And you're going to probably be able to enjoy most of those 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let me tell you, having Uranus opposition happen in your 8th house when you've avoided intimacy for most of your life, it in and of itself isn't pleasant. But when you realize this is all part of a bigger plan and you surrender to that, I've had 80% of the time over this last couple of years, I've been having a great time.
And I think you brought up a good point. I get everything is perspective, everything, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I have to say that even though I've had all these, whatever challenges, hurdles, I've still managed to have an amazing time.
Yeah, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and I think that's, at the end of the day, I think that's what we all need to focus on. Like, yeah, okay, things kind of suck, but everything is temporary, right?
It's all part of the growth.
Sometimes the temporary can be very, very intense, but it's that growth, it's that intensity that's going to help you grow even more or break you. And I think that's where we are at a point right now in the collective. because you brought that up as far as in the very beginning, as far as the collective where things are heading to now. I think we are at I think we've now at the tipping point, the catalyst where a lot
Yeah.
of people are either going to make it or
Yeah.
break it, and
Yeah.
we're seeing that distinction now. And who are the people that are going to break it? And I feel intuitively, I feel the people that are going to break are the ones that didn't get the opportunity to ask those questions a long time ago. Who am I?
Yeah.
What is this about? And are going to be on the struggle bus for a
Yeah.
longer time than the rest of us.
A lot of people are on the struggle bus because they're not exploring the depth of who they are, and they're not exploring the possibility of growing and expanding beyond where they are. And the whole point of being alive at the turning of the ages, as we all are, is that you can actually grow more. You can accomplish more profound growth during a time like this than at any other point on the planet. That's why there's 8 billion people on the planet right now, because so many souls want to come and have an incarnation so that they can have so much growth and transformation. You don't always get this opportunity. We've had a lot of different cycles end at the same time. And this is important to understand. Every 2,160 years, we go into a new astrological age. Well, we've exited Pisces. We've very recently gone into Aquarius. That doesn't happen very often. Then we have the Yuga cycles, which is a 26,000 year cycle. The Kali Yuga, according to Bibhudev Misra, who I recommend everyone read his book Yuga Shift, that ended on the spring equinox of 2025. And then, of course, most people listening to this probably know about the Mayan calendar ending in 2012. So these are 3 timelines that have ended roughly at around the same time. And we're all alive when this happens. And when one timeline's in and a new one begins, what's important for people to understand is all of the old ways fall apart. And when you have to build something new on the rubble, well, our world is changing. Our world looks like it's falling apart some days. But really, what's happening is there's a new order that's being established. The old order is being torn down first, though. And we have to understand that
Yeah.
that's what's happening. We don't have to like everything that's happening. We don't have to like all of the actors and all the actions that they do. It's just helpful to understand the broader context so that you don't, again, see yourself as a victim of the times. Oh my God, I'm alive while this guy is president and all these things are happening and woe is me. No, you actually choose to be alive right now because you have more potency and more potential to affect the new timeline that we're all going toward.
And one thing I find fascinating is because of all those timelines, is if people want to have that sort of evidence or something tangible to look at how technology has changed so much within just our little
Yeah.
lifespan. We went from, well, I grew up with 8 tracks, right?
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
record player, eight
Yeah.
track. Then we had the Walkman, then the
Yep.
Discman, then
CDs.
everything. And then look where we are now, like AI, right? And that
Yeah.
AI is going to be a different thing, but it's that's how quickly when these cycles and a new one starts, that's how quickly things move.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, it's, I mean, right now I already feel that time is moving so fast.
It
Do I
is.
even have enough time to like enjoy my time? There are many times where I wish I didn't have to sleep because I feel like I don't have enough time to enjoy whatever it is I'm doing at the moment. And that's where we are right now. That if we don't stay aware and aware of what's happening, before we know it's going to be done.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to be aware. We have to know ourselves. We have to know our mission, and we have to live it. And might as well enjoy living it while you're doing it.
Oh, mission. There you go. Okay, purpose. How can astrology help you identify your purpose or your mission?
That's a great question, and that's what it's all about. Everybody comes into life not just to stumble through it, but to move time and space and have an effect on time and space in some way. Some of that is going to be big on the world stage. Some of that is going to be just in your daily life. When you understand the astrology of your birth chart, especially if you understand stuff that's in your 10th house, because that's your career, and when you understand your Pluto and the nodes of the moon, you're going to understand what your soul purpose is. One of the big differences between evolutionary astrology and other branches of astrology is we're all about the soul and what the soul intends to do in a life, what the soul's mission is. And you understand that by understanding your Pluto placement. When you understand where Pluto is in your chart by house and by sign, you understand what the soul's compulsion to evolve is in that life. Then when you understand the north node of the moon and the south node of the moon, again by house and by sign, the south node allows you to see the direction you're coming in from, the karma that you're bringing in. The north node allows you to see the direction that you're gravitating toward, the energy that you want to be moving toward. When you understand that, you get a better idea of what you on a soul level came here to do, the energy you want to gravitate to, and that starts to help you realize what it is your mission is. And then of course, if you have planets in your 10th house, that can be even more illuminated in the birth chart. But all of it, when you go to somebody to get a reading or you learn how to read this yourself, all of it begins to tell you a story about what your deepest evolutionary desires are, and your purpose is in acting that desire out, not just so that you grow, but so that you're helping the collective at the same time in some way.
You know what, you were saying all this stuff. I think it would be awesome to get a chart to see where this all pans out for
Yes.
you, but also include that the gene keys.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that would be dope because it gives you
Yes.
more intel on the themes
Yes.
that it's kind of like taking like those personality, which I can't think of any personality quizzes
Oh, I
to
know.
tell you
Myers, is
whether,
it Myers-Briggs? Is that one of
yeah,
them?
that
Yeah.
type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's like taking that to a I don't know, metaphysical, spiritual, whatever
It
level,
is. Yeah.
and then it tells you where your strengths are, and these are the weaknesses that you
Yeah.
have. This is the karma that you're going to have to
Yeah.
play out and work through and make them into the best strength you can,
Yeah.
I think that would be super dope to combine the chart with the gene keys.
I know people that do that. I haven't studied the gene keys yet. I have a friend. Her name is Andrea. She's a crystal extraordinaire. She has this really cool business called the Crystal Situation. She's an astrologer, Kundalini Yogi, and she studies the gene keys. So yeah, there are ways to marry those together, and she talks about doing that.
Yeah, oh wow, I'm gonna have to do that. I think I'm gonna have to take some time to actually learn astrology a little bit more because it does get a little bit too complicated for I think my brain is just all I made a decision not to have a hard time learning
Yeah.
astrology, but the reality is it's once you, like everything else, once you put your mind to it, you'll get it, right?
Well,
So I just have to unlock that.
I can send you a link to some books that would be a good start. There's this one book called The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need. It's like a 400-page book, but it's like big type, and it's a reference book. You can read like what is Libra, what is Taurus, what is Jupiter, and then you start to understand more of the basics. Start there, like understand the building blocks, understand the planets, understand the signs, understand the houses. Those are the three things to really start with when you're wanting to just learn astrology at the beginning.
Oh, thank you. I think I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, that'll be
And
good.
it's a very approachable kind of book.
And you said big print. Can't go wrong with big print.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a practice of Kundalini yoga and the astrology,
Yeah.
and this is what you offer to the collective. This is your jam.
Yes, it is. Yeah. I am aware that part of my mission is to help us move through this Aquarian shift. I've always been fascinated by timelines. I've always been fascinated by the way that time changes and the time turns. And I understand that part of my mission is to help us navigate these very intense times. And the way I think we can do that is with the practice of Kundalini Yoga and the knowledge of astrology. So what I like to do is marry those two together. When I teach a Kundalini Yoga class, most of the time I'm designing it around planetary energy. I've done a series before where we went through all 9 planets, and every class was like, there was a Mars class that was very action oriented. There was a Jupiter class where we did a lot of prosperity kriyas. We did deep meditations in the Neptune class. We did transformative meditations in the Pluto class. Those classes are designed to call in planetary energy and move that through your system. But I also do things like we just had this really cool Jupiter and Venus conjunction, which is a big blessing opportunity that happened on Tuesday. So there's meditations that we do that actually use the Jupiter finger and the Venus mounds. Well, on days like that, I like to teach meditations like that because then you're having a physical experience of what's going on in the cosmos. And I think that's really powerful.
When you have powerful moments like that, or powerful nights or days of usually, new moon,
Yeah.
full moon, whatever, So my understanding, which is different to what I hear on the social media platforms, is just that is a moment in time where
It
the
is.
energies and the veil is a little bit thinner
Focusing.
than
Mhm.
normal, where you can focus on whatever intentions you have to get more
Yeah.
momentum on that. But it's not necessarily like, oh, I manifest, a Bentley, and
Yeah.
then you wake up the
No.
next morning and you have a Bentley.
No, and also it's not like, oh, I missed it, I'm screwed. Sometimes we're busy and we don't have time to do a 3 hour meditation on the full moon. That's okay. It's like you said, it's a portal, and there's also a window with a lot of these things. It's sort of like 3 days before, 3 days after. But again, the most important thing is your daily practice. If you have a daily practice, it doesn't matter what the full moon and the new moon and the conjunctions are, you're going to be unstoppable because you're doing something every day to move energy, whether you're aware of what's going on in the cosmos or not. And that's what makes you powerful. And that's what helps you get through this time.
For saying that, because I think it's very important for people to understand that you don't have to reserve your one moment of 3 hours or 2 hours of meditation for that particular the
No.
solstice or whatever. If you have something, if you meditate for 10, 15 minutes a day, if you
Yeah.
just just be in a state of flow, whether it's gardening, because that's a
Yeah.
meditative state as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
wherever you can get in any type of state of flow, that is enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need to go all out.
If you sit down and you do a meditation every day, that's actually going to do more than doing the full moon and the new moon meditations. If that's the only time you ever show up to do anything. Now, do the full moon and the new moon meditations too, but don't expect your life to change if you just show up on the solstices or on the moons and you just
Right.
do something that day. It's good if you do that. I mean, if you never meditate and you only meditate on solstice, go to solstice. Better doing that than to go to the stupid club I went to in West Hollywood. But um, understand you're going to have more growth and you're going to have more transformation the more consistent that is as part of your daily life.
Because that is going to be your identity change, and that's going to be what's
Yeah.
going to shift you into that timeline that you need to align with.
Yeah. And when we talk about shifting timelines, that all that means is that you're living your best life. Like you're living the best version of yourself or a more elevated, more heightened version of yourself than you were previously. It doesn't necessarily mean that like you end up back in the 1800s or you're in some, like you're in some alternate version where you're married to somebody else. Could mean that. I have heard of those things, but it more is just about you changing the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, we don't want to go back to the 1800s.
No.
No.
Yeah.
I've been burned at the stake too many times. Can't go that far back either. So,
I think many of us have. Yes.
yeah. Okay, so those are very good practical things because I'm a firm believer that even though first of all, I always forget there's something going on, so it's not like I'm always
All the time.
cognizant of like,
Yeah.
oh wait, something big's supposed to happen. No, but I do have my daily routines that I do, and for me that's enough. For
Yeah.
me, it's because I'm in the constant. I am connected. Whatever it looks for me, I know that I am connected.
Yeah, and look, we have a
At any good time.
lunation. We have a lunation every 14 days. There's a new moon and a full moon basically every 2 weeks in the lunar cycle. So yeah, you're not always going to have time to do that. What you just said, that's what matters. It's your own practice dropping into you.
So, if you had a message to give the collective right now, what would it be?
Be excited to be alive. I know that it feels intense, but get excited about being alive right now because the people who are excited about being alive and the people that are allowing themselves to grow and are moving time and space rather than being a victim to time and space, they're the ones that are going to set the agenda for the next 2000 years. So the more excited you are, the more animated you are, the more turned on you are by the life that you're living, the more impact you're going to have. And what we do at the turning of the ages, that sets the stage for the next 2000 years. There's a high vibration of Aquarius, which is what's in that song, by the fifth dimension. It's harmony and understanding, mystic crystal revelations. It's all that good stuff. That's the age of Aquarius we want to be a part of, right? But there's a low vibration, and the low vibration we're seeing that happen right now. It's technocracy. It's a digital control grid. It's an elitism. It's a oppression of us becoming a slave to technology rather than using it for our benefit. Well, I want to be on the high vibration of what the age of Aquarius is supposed to be about. And that is a collective decision. as well as an individual decision. We have to each individually decide to live our life to the fullest, to the max, and hope and understand that as we do that, that redounds to the collective.
Isn't the Aquarius age also the golden age, if I
It
remember?
it has been referred to as the golden age. Yeah, my teacher Tej talks about it being the golden age, and one of the things that was talked about in the yogic prophecies was that by the year 2036, the Aquarian consciousness would start to set in more, and we would more be into the energy of what the golden age is supposed to be. So we're 10 years away from that. We got a lot of work to do in these 10 years. And if you understand
Do.
astrology, there's a lot of interesting astrological things that are happening in 2036 as well that really complement that yogic philosophy or that yogic prophecy.
The one thing I always tell people is like we are here to plant the seeds because in I'm going to channel Whitney Houston. You know, I believe the children are our future, and they are because all these elites they're going to croak, bro. I mean, they're about to croak at any given moment. So it's now
Yeah.
the people that are taking over, and we're still going to have duality because
Yeah.
this is the Earth, the Earth school. So, but we can definitely start heading in that direction if we do our job in planting the seeds. And again, what you just said was basically, what's your perspective on life? Take the high road, you know, and
Yeah.
enjoy every single moment of it. Because when you enjoy, you become infectious, and the other people around you are going to start enjoying their life too. And that's how it happens. That's, you know, we spread the love, we spread the wealth, we spread everything.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is don't get overwhelmed by what's going on in the collective. Don't let that dim your light because there is an agenda to allow that. Yeah, there is a lot being exposed right now. The elites, they are being taken down. It doesn't seem like it, but that is what's happening. Pluto in Aquarius is exposing where all of the power imbalances are and where power needs to be redistributed. And we're in the process of seeing that happen. Never let the news cycle trance you into a negative state.
I love it. I love it. We're going to leave it at that. I'm going to have you back on again because there's still a lot more to talk about.
I'd love to come
We're
back.
going to talk about AI. I mean,
Yes.
there's everything, and I want to keep that separate because that's a whole,
Yeah.
I
Well,
love AI. So
I'll
whatever.
end in with the tease. Uranus going into Gemini, which happened in April, is all about liberating the mind on one possibility. But the other possibility is that the mind could be captured by artificial intelligence. So we'll have that conversation another time. But the next 7 years, we're dancing with this energy.
Hey, I love to dance. Bring it.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Jason.
thank you. This was lovely.
You know, for people that want to get a hold of you, I'm going to have all your information down in the description so they can contact you, get a reading, get a yoga session, whatever the case may be. It was so awesome talking to you. I can't wait to have our next, I guess, show or whatever you want to call
Yes,
it.
me
But
too. Me too. I'm excited.
thank you so much. And
You. Thank you.
have an awesome day, bro.
You as well. Thank you.